Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. How are we feeling? So it's late, but I had to get on here. Um, and I'm not going to be on here long, but I was praying, and I don't usually talk a whole lot about credit when I go live. I have several videos, of course, on my YouTube channel that talks about credit, giving credit help. I run a credit repair business. But the bridge for me, when it comes to credit, is your credit is a consequence of your money habits, right? Your credit, whether it's in the positive or whether it's in the negative, it is still a consequence of what's going on in your life. The chaos, the disorganization, when it comes to your finances. And when I say disorganization and when I'm talking about chaos, I'm not saying it in a way for you to feel shame, for you to blame yourself, for you to feel unworthy because you had to make certain decisions about your finances. And no one told you what to do. No one even explained to you the importance of credit or what credit is really for. Because to be honest, credit is used as a tool to make more money. That is really what credit is about. It is about building, it is about growing when it comes to the way that you can leverage your personal credit. It's just traditionally the way that we're taught about credit is the way that the way that we're taught about credit is not the way that we should be taught about credit, if that makes sense. So my personal story with credit is I've been through two bankruptcies. I've been through car repossession. I've been through owing collection agencies, all kinds of things, right? My very first bankruptcy happened at the age of 21. The reason why that bankruptcy happened is because I had to go in the hospital, and I had a huge medical bill. At the time, my parents, and you know what, back then the health insurance age may have changed. I don't know, but all I know is I was on my mom's insurance, but she worked for kind of like a co-op buy-in insurance, so it wasn't where they paid a big portion. And so what happened is, good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining me. What happened was, after the whole situation with my health, they had this astronomical medical bill. And I got sent a letter that said that they were going to garnish my wages. At the time, like I said, I was 21. My parents didn't know what to do exactly. I was working and I was in college. And my mom was like, let's go to a lawyer, because anytime people talk about garnishing wages, you're able to have someone that can really to help you with that. So I went to the lawyer. The only advice the lawyer could give me was to file for bankruptcy. Now, back then, it's a little bit different now, but I didn't have a lot of debt. I didn't have any debt. My credit wasn't even built. I was young. I didn't know anything about credit, but I knew these people were going to garnish my wages. I did a bankruptcy so that basically they wouldn't garnish my wages. I believe then, gosh, the hospital bill, I think, was probably around $19,000. It was insane. And I believe they had already possibly put it on my credit as well. So that was the big thing. It wasn't just the garnishment of wages, it was already on my credit. So long story short, that was my first bankruptcy. And I had no idea, what that meant. I didn't know after that I could have rebuilt my credit. After that, of course, you're a college student. I just kind of went wild. You know, you go to college, they start offering you all these cards, offering you different things, and I just went ahead and did it. So over time, I still didn't know what to do with my credit. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know that it was something that I could use. I do remember having to apply for an apartment and being denied because of my credit. Actually, I think that happened twice at that time. And by then I had my daughter. I was in my mid 20s. So fast forward, um, I get married and we are going through a serious financial disruption. And really, to be honest, from the time we were together, because we were kind of like rebuilding our lives, figuring out what we, but we had kids, things were always kind of a financial situation. Very, very stressful, not understanding how to really save money, manage money, just knowing that we needed to pay the bills so that we wouldn't be out on the street. So from there, at the time, I believe, yes, I was in school and working on my master's degree, and he was working. I was at home with the kids, they were small, and things just got really out of control. I was the one that always managed the finances. And because of my past, right, the history with what happened when I grew up, my parents losing everything when I was a teenager and us having to move across the country, we lost our home, we lost our vehicles, all of these things happened. My dad's business went down. So that was the only kind of reverence and knowledge that I had about finances, is really like not understanding what to do. So anyway, because of that, I felt like I had to always be in control of the finances and I always had to handle everything. But the problem was, because of my mindset around money and my thoughts of lack and being scared that the same thing was going to happen to me that happened to my parents, I wasn't communicating with him about the finances. But when something happened, I kind of would get upset with him, or if he spent money and I didn't know anything about it and that kind of thing, I would be upset, but I would also sit in silence, right, based on our situation, but I wasn't communicating anything to him. So I was getting payday loans, I was getting installment loans, we even had a car loan, on our car, one of those like pawn loans for your car. So I probably had at one time, I can imagine, probably like 10 of those different installment loans, because then you could like do everything online. I had even the ones that you had to go into the office and do. I probably had three of those. So basically, I'm just incurring this debt and literally had no way of paying it. But the debt was getting us to be able to pay our everyday bills, to buy diapers, to keep the lights on, to feed our family. And then sometimes what I would do is I would get my school money because I was in school, and I would pay off some of the loans. But I would be constantly getting calls and letters, and it was so overwhelming, so overwhelming. There were so many times that I remember just having complete breakdowns, like, God, please help me. I don't know how to get out of this situation. I'm in school, we're doing the best to better our lives, to raise our kids. And it was just a cycle. It was just a cycle that just kept on happening. So long story short, things got out of control and we ended up having to file for bankruptcy. So this is my second bankruptcy in my life. And it was it was pretty rough. It was pretty rough. I say, especially on him, and I still wasn't communicating. We knew this is what we had to do, but the thing is, we still weren't talking about what was actually going on in our marriage and our relationship when it comes to finances. Like, we really weren't talking about it. Like, it's almost like it's so weird when you think about it, right? Because you're living in a home with someone, you're talking about all of these things, the kids, the family, the this, the that, planning things and all of these different things, but you're not actually talking about the elephant in the room. The biggest thing, you go to work every day, you do all of these things to collect money, but you're not talking about it, which when you think about it, it's kind of wild, right? But it's a sore spot because it's a sore spot for him and me based on how we grew up and how we were taught about money and our thoughts around credit and all of these things. So during that part of the bankruptcy, the car was one of the things that, we had to let go of. And at that time, both of us had never had a new car. And it was our first new car that we have, both of us ever purchased. We were so happy that we were actually able to get a brand new car off the lot. Now, our credit wasn't that great when we got the car, so we had to put money down. We probably did it, now that I think about it, who knows? We probably did it around income tax time where we had got the money to be able to put down. But anyway, we got into this car. This was probably 2.5 to 3 years after we got a car. We had to put it in the bankruptcy because we were probably behind about over 90 days on the car. And I understood what the lawyer was saying, but my ex-husband didn't quite understand. And so I wasn't explaining it to him and he wasn't asking me questions. The car was parked outside and it got repoed in the middle of the night. And, you can hear when, the tow truck is there. So it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I realized, like, I knew it was going to happen. I knew they were going to come get the car, but we had to ride in the car every day. We had two vehicles. That was the one that we mainly put the kids in because it was reliable. And all I could think about, I looked out the window and I remember all I could think about was like, oh my God, the kids' car seats are in the car. And, I got to get the kids' car seats. So I literally threw something on, ran outside, like running down the street at 1 o'clock in the morning in our neighborhood, calling the tow truck driver because I needed to get the car seats out of the car. And that moment, for me, it was insane. My ex-husband, I think for him as a man, I know he probably had so many thoughts going through his head, just feeling like shame, feeling all of these things like in the neighborhood, like our neighbors knew us, just the whole ordeal, the whole thing. That just caused like a total breakdown for me. And I knew that something had to get fixed. And from that point, I think after the bankruptcy, is when I really started wanting to understand credit better. And okay, what happens when you have great credit? Like, what kind of access do you get? I knew with the bankruptcy, everything would be wiped clean and we get to start over, but I still didn't know what any of that meant. Like, I'm just repeating things that the lawyer would send me. So I actually just started doing research and understanding credit. Then, it wasn't really people like it is now, with credit repair, like me having a credit repair business. It was a different time. But I knew that I had to figure out how to fix things. And so that is how I started getting into credit and really understanding the importance of credit. And it was a journey. It was a journey rebuilding our credit. And, there were things that were on my credit that weren't supposed to be. Handwriting letters and sending them in the mail and doing all this, calling the collection agencies and doing all of these things and realizing that I wasn't served properly when it came to collection agencies, the paperwork, all of these things where my rights, my consumer rights were being violated. And I didn't understand it because in my head, I just thought, well, if I didn't pay something, then it's my responsibility. So these people just have the right to come after me. And then thinking, about the bankruptcy I just went through and the one that I went through in my 20s is like, well, I don't have any rights. I just have to just do what they say and I have to pay them. But if I don't have the money, how can I pay them? So I'm telling this story to say that it's really, really hard sometimes when you're in a financial, what I would just say, chokehold, and you feel so vulnerable and you feel so angry and you may feel shame and sadness because it feels like the cycle keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. If you just use me as an example of things do not have to stay the same, and I know how it feels. I understand. I get it. I totally do. But credit is supposed to be used to give you access to make more money. Give you an example. If you have a business, right? It is so easy to get business funding really, really fast, capital for your business. But in order to do that, you need to utilize and leverage your personal credit, right? The great thing about it is you utilize your personal credit, but the banks and things that we use, and a lot of funders use, it doesn't get reported to your personal credit. So while you're leveraging your personal credit, because the banks need to see that you're responsible with your personal, even if you don't have revenue from your business yet, you can still get business funding. And they're only utilizing to run your credit to get an inquiry, right? To look at your credit. The inquiries can get taken away. That's not an issue. We can remove those, right? But you can get up to $200,000 for your business. So that's just one example when I say that your personal credit is really used as a tool for you to collect and make more money, right? For you to figure out a strategy about how can you use your credit to make more money or to help you pay your bills and build points or whatever the case is. There's always a way that you can use credit and build a strategy that makes sense. And so I didn't know that. No one educated, me on that. No one ever told me that the United States operates off credit and the United States is a corporation, but nobody teaches that in school, that everything the United States has is based on credit, right? It is totally. That's why we're in a deficit now, right? The United States credit wasn't managed properly. But just because you have high debt is not always a bad thing, right? But again, your credit is a direct reflection of your money habits. It is a direct reflection about your relationship with money, your money mindset, your self-worth, and how much you really think you're worth. When I say self-worth, I'm talking about your worth. Your worth, because I'm not talking about I'm worth $1 million. I'm talking about how you think about yourself when it comes to handling your finances. How much do you think you're worthy of the highest level of financial abundance, the best credit in the world, working towards a solution to how to fix your credit, right? All of these things depends on your self-worth. And I'm saying this because I know that it feels very, very difficult to come out of your situation, but there is always a solution, no matter how difficult it looks. And whatever you were taught about credit, whether credit is evil, cash is king, you always have to use cash, no, 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 run those cards up and all of those things, just wipe the slate clean. Like your mental money mindset, wipe it clean, because none of that is true. None of it is true. If you only knew how much debt and credit that millionaires and billionaires have, it would just be astonishing to you. But they're doing it because they have a strategy and it's helping them to build wealth. There is always a solution. And whatever your financial situation is, you can recover from it. You cannot do it alone, though. You have to get help, because if you haven't figured it out by now, you're not going to figure it out right this second. I don't care whether that's you getting into a community, whether that's you doing your own research, whether that is you hiring a credit repair company, but you have to take the step to do the thing, because what you're doing right now is not benefiting you. It's not allowing you to grow financially. Sometimes it benefits you to be able to have access to people like myself to help educate you, to help build out a strategy, to help you figure out how to get out of your financial situation. I want to send everybody an abundance of love and light. I want to tell you that every situation that you are in life is totally temporary, and that, especially when it comes to credit, it can be renewed, refreshed, revitalized over and over and over and over again. So do not get discouraged if you're in a place financially with your credit, whatever the case is, that you don't want to be in anymore. You can recover from it. This is not the end, and there is always a solution. And remember that no matter what, you are your greatest value. You are your greatest asset. Take care.